You mentioned when you look out the window and you're flying, you see the beauty of everything. And I do exactly the same thing. I wake up every morning with intention, and I see how I'm going to see my day unfold. But everywhere I look, I choose to look because it's my mindset in the beauty of things, in the opportunity of things, in the greatness of things. And then when I'm encountered with something that I don't like, I always ask the question, why am I in the presence of this? Or why am I in the presence of this person? If something is not. But I ask that question even when it's good, but specifically if something isn't good. Because I think even in the bad, there's good. I know that can be hard for people to understand and wrap their heads around. But I think that for every closed door, I know it's a kind of cliche comment, but for every closed door, there's multiple doors that are open. All you need to do is step back from that closed door, and then those other open doors come into view.
Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, oh, okay, we know where Canada is, and British Columbia on the west coast, right? Right. And there is a big city called Vancouver, and where are we compared to Vancouver? We are 500 miles, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers north of Vancouver, which puts us in the center of British Columbia, northwest, east, south. Big province, lots of forest, lots of trees, and within 50 miles of Prince George, at least 100 lakes, lots of timber, lots of trees, lots of friends, black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, foxes, wolves, you name it, we have them all. We call them friends, and we call it paradise. Today we got a very, very special guest. His name is Jeff Huff, and Jeff is a very, very interesting person. Today's best-selling author, renowned for his novels. He has spent over 40 books, including the international acclaimed The New World and series, and he has been a Marine Corps combat veteran. Jeff's diverse background also includes roles as a bodyguard, commercial diver. I can just go on and on and on. And so, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
So, give us some of your background, Jeff. Where are you from originally? And then how did you go forward, including your term as in the Marines, and then how did you then fall into becoming an author, and then obviously 40 books and a lot of them bestsellers, sold millions of copies. Tell us about your background first.
Yeah, well, I'm originally from the little state on the East Coast called Maryland in the United States, and I was raised on a farm. It wasn't a working farm; it was an old tobacco farm, and had a great childhood. It really did. My grandfather had acquired the land like back in the 1930s, and a lot of like over 100 acres, and had literally uh, envisioned it to be kind of like I don't use the word compound, but it's essentially have all the family live on it over the years,
Right.
all his children and grandchildren, and that's exactly what happened. So I grew
Kind
up
of an estate,
on.
right?
He gave 9 acres to my parents, and then they built the house, and that's where I was raised. With cousins around and things like that. An incredible childhood, and but yet I wanted something more for my life, and I wanted kind of adventure. You could say when you're young and you just see the world. I read a lot as a young person and just had all these dreams. And I really wanted to get out. And one of those dreams was to kind of really travel the world and but do so part of, I had this romanticism at the time of being in the military. And so I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps when I was 17 and then went in when I was 18. And I did that for 6 years. But that's kind of, again, a great childhood, grew up on a farm in Maryland.
So then, the I was in the I was born in Holland in 1940, so I'm approaching, and within 2 months I'll be 85 years young. But I had also a period where we were drafted in Holland when I grew up there. And at 18 years old, you were either drafted into the Marine side or the Army side or the Air Force. So I spent 2 years in the Air Force. Quite an experience, actually, a little bit more than 2 years. Good experience, laid a good foundation. I wish they still had it in terms of at the age that is delicate to find direction, and then all of a sudden you get drafted, at least in my way, into the Army or in my case the Air Force, and at the time that you think you know it all, they put you in a room 2 beds high or higher. There's another 40 guys that think they know it all too. So it's kind of
That's so true.
and then get you up at 5 in the morning, and and then from there on in, I think my initial training was about 4 to 6 months, and so in special forces, I have no idea why they put me there, but anyway. So, but it was a good experience and good training.
Yeah, when I look back on my military experience, there were definitely times it was very uncomfortable, to say the least. But I've really just reframed everything in my mind. I've been doing this for a long time. Reframed it as everything is an opportunity for learning, and the military was a great experience. I garnered a lot of perspective, and I agree with you. I think it's very good for young people in many ways. I know there's some people that it might be a controversial statement, but I think there's a lot of good that a young person can get from joining the military. One, if they're forwardly deployed like they do a lot of the United States, you're all over the place, you're traveling around. You just get to see cultures that you normally wouldn't, be exposed to. Secondly, I think and I know college can do this a lot, but sometimes we just naturally as human beings tend to segregate ourselves anyway. But what the military does is it forces you to be with people you may not have associated with by choice. And I know from my own personal experience, I got to meet incredible young men that are from diverse backgrounds, nothing foreign to mine, and just we ended up having a bond and created a relationship because of that. And we were able to see past color, past kind of where we were, status in life, things like that, only because we had this one common purpose, and that we were kind of together doing what you do in the military. So I can't. I always think about that a lot, and I truly appreciate my time, and I'm really appreciative of just the United States itself for having me be in the military, having that option for me as a young man. So I have a lot of gratitude, and I really look at the military as a wonderful experience. Again, barring all the experience at the 3 deployments, combat, and all that, I just find it, even with all that, was an illuminating and positive experience for me.
Yeah, and even for me, although it was 65 years ago that I was 18, so I still have habits today that come from my time in the Air Force or in the military. And one of the things that I do is I pick up things that I see laying on the on the sidewalk or anywhere. Just a habit. The other part that I do, and I usually say that in my background, is that I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, military, and then the other part is I always think I'm late, and that's still very much part of my life even today. So
I totally, yeah. If the only thing you do during the day is make your bed, then you've accomplished something. That's what I remember. That was told us to make your rack.
And then the other part about it, Jeff, when you get home and after a busy day, and then you go to bed, you go into a bed that is ready for you. And so for me, it's a habit. And no matter where I am, no matter what I do, I always make the bed. So and I like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes into kind of crafting. I know they would really drill into our brains. And it was essentially the concept of discipline, which I've then carried on in my life. Having discipline is critical, I think, in life. You can have motivation. Motivation only takes you so far. Plus, it's emotionally based. When you have discipline, you can conquer anything. You can do anything when you have that discipline. And I think How did you really want to make your bed every morning? No, but you just do it. You just do it. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of these consistent habits that build on themselves, and you end up with great things at the end.
And then the other part to me was always important, and and when I initially came to Canada and started working as a cleanup man, lumber pilot, and all of those kind of things when I started, being on time to me has always been something that is important, or making a commitment that I do something some people are very casual but say, I'm late. Yeah. So to me, you go out of your way about being on time. And so structure in terms of interaction, discipline, as you say, to me, extremely important. The other one that's important to me is that, and actually I have a board sitting here that my employees made for me when I came here to Prince George, in particular into Canada, in 1965, and I landed here in Prince George 60 years ago. I had a suitcase, I had 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and 3 books, and I had no money really. I counted my money at least 3 times. I didn't know a soul, couldn't speak language, didn't have a job. I had $25.47.
Yeah, look at that.
But I did have lots of attitude. I've always been positive, even when things go wrong. I've always will look at the glass is always half full to me, or better, And I always look for. I don't tolerate people bitching and complaining about this, that, and the other thing. I said we live in paradise. We are fortunate. And then the other one is passion. No matter what I do, I give it 125%. And the other one is work ethic. The harder you work, the more what will follow is success. And I still do that even now. I'm usually the first one at work. I'm the last one to leave, even now at nearly 85. And so, and I believe that part is important.
Oh, the three things you have there are really kind of how I lead my life too, and how I always have. And I always love that. I love those stories too. $25.47. I when my wife and I did something when we were just started dating, we kind of packed up everything. We just moved to Idaho just on a whim because I had this vision of this is a really cool. It was an opportunity that I saw. And it ended up being incredible. And when I got there, I left my job as a bodyguard. I was making really good money at the time. I'd been in the industry for about 10 years. And I gave it up to go work for $10 an hour building mountain biking trails at the age of 31 years old. And she goes, "You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, "This place is going somewhere." It was a brand new ski resort. The first one hadn't been built in 20 some years. And I just saw it going somewhere. I was like, it doesn't matter where you start. It only matters where you end up. And I've always believed that. And that was, God, that was 25 years ago. And like we hit the ground running. I was like one of the first people. I was working at $10 an hour, and they were like, "Really, you want to work for us?" It's like, absolutely. It's beautiful. Look where I'm in the mountains of central Idaho. This is God's country. This is amazing. I want to be here. I need to be here. I'm supposed to be here. And that ended up like it was such an incredible adventure for her and I. We ended up getting married there. We built our first house there. Our first child was born there. All these beautiful things came from taking that big risk, kind of at the poker table. We went all in, and again, kind of like that. We got there with really not that much. It's just our experiences and our clothes on our backs, and a lot of well wishing from our family. Some of us thought they were crazy. Some of them thought we were crazy what we were doing. We were giving up the safety.
Yeah.
Our safety
Security.
being where we were. Security, like what is that?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I appreciate what that is, and look where you are today. Look at your journey. It's an incredible journey to show up somewhere, what's that term, like a foreigner in a foreign land kind of thing, and then to get there and then look where you are today. So it doesn't matter where you start; it only matters where you end up.
And to me, what is important, has always been part of me. And although I had lots of challenges academically, I was not a success story in Holland. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times, and they said, what are we going to do with this guy? My parents were beautiful people, and so some people said to them, put him in the mentally challenged school. He said, no, we're not going to do that. So let's get him a job so he can work with his hands. And because a lot of people that were teaching me said, well, he will not amount to much as in going to university or anything like that. He will never make it there. So get him a trade. So my grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in lumber. So they said, well, my dad had a friend that had a furniture factory, so let's make him a furniture maker. And so at 12 and a half years old, I want to work in a furniture factory. And then that for me stimulated, two things stimulated my journey as I went forward. Obviously, I was born in 1940. We were liberated by the Allied forces that landed in Normandy in 1944, and the Americans, the Canadians, and the UK together, and then the Canadians went north to France, Belgium, west side of Holland, and we lived in the northeastern part of Holland, 10-15 minutes from the German border. Things got pretty rough there. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. Still affects me even still today. PTSD has always been part of my life. The inner child has been. So we were liberated by the Canadian Army, and it made such an impression on me that I knew from that point forward at 5 years old that as I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. I initially was going to go when I was 17, and my parents said, you're too young, and then I got checked out for my military. Obviously, you have to go into the military, so got checked out at 17, and then at 18, I was put into the Air Force, and then worked in the industry for a couple of years, lumber industry, and then decided to go to Canada. And when I was 24, with nothing other than a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then obviously, as I already said, with very little money. But I had the dream to build a lumber mill. That's what I wanted to do, to prove to me, not to anybody else, prove to me that I was just as smart as everybody else. Not smarter than, but just as smart as everybody else. But I had to start from nothing, I believed. And I had to go back, and that's what I said, a little bit radical. I had to go back in a box, or I'd go back successful, but I love Canada, a little bit on the radical side. But so I started, as a clean-up man, lumber pile. I couldn't speak language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And then so from there on in is that, but it is the land of opportunity. And now a lot of times, when I fly a lot, I do a lot of business in the United States as well, and I fly a lot in commercial airplanes, and then I always sit by the window and I look outside and I say, it's paradise. How lucky we are collectively in North America. All we have to do, I was there during the war. You saw far too much that we should not have seen, the worst of the worst, and it will always stay with you, but I appreciate it, and I look now at Europe, see the Ukraine, and then the Middle East, and then see countries like Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, China, and I can go on and on and on, and lucky us, we live in North America, Canada, United States, Mexico, together can be the most powerful economic driver, but an example of freedom and democratic rule. And it's the United States that liberated the Europeans and then followed it up with the Marshall Plan of rebuilding Europe. And so I've always looked at the United States in particular as leading democratic example to the rest of the free world. And obviously, what is the foundation is the Constitution of the United States that says we, the people, and I believe still all the challenges in between will remain to be over the last 250 years we're leading the world. And I still look at that today as we, the democratic governments around the free world together can protect the world and be a stimulus for those that aspire to be successful, no matter what they want to do.
You mentioned when you look out the window and you're flying, you see the beauty of everything. And I do exactly the same thing. I wake up every morning with intention, and I see how I'm going to see my day unfold. But everywhere I look, I choose to look because it's my mindset in the beauty of things, in the opportunity of things, in the greatness of things. And then when I'm encountered with something that I don't like, I always ask the question, why am I in the presence of this? Or why am I in the presence of this person? If something is not. But I ask that question even when it's good, but but specifically if something isn't good. Because I think even in the bad, there's good. I know that can be hard for people to understand and wrap their heads around. But I think that for every closed door, I know it's a kind of cliche comment, but for every closed door, there's multiple doors that are open. All you need to do is step back from that closed door, and then those other open doors come into view. And I'm the glass is always full. I think mindset. I look around and see beauty in things, and I think and when you fix your mind on that, then that is all your reality is. And again, even though I saw some things and did some very uncomfortable things in the military, I choose to just look at those as learning opportunities and to give me greater perspective to look at the beauty that I have in my life, the beauty of what we have in North America, 100%. Like, it's incredible. Like, if there was a North American Federation, that it would be a powerhouse, a juggernaut. It would absolutely be a juggernaut. And we're just so uniquely positioned in the world as a continent, kind of with the two oceans on either side of us, protecting us, guarding us, and then just the bounty and abundance of natural resources, coupled with a foundational belief in liberty and free markets could have just the potential is incredible. We've seen the potential where it's gotten us today, and the potential can just take to relieve human suffering around the world. Exactly. And just shower the world with incredible abundance. But I think it's a mindset thing. I think everything is about what you believe. You end up actually seeing, and I mean, we can go into kind of my viewpoints on that even deeper. Some people think it's a little woo-woo, but my life is completely filled with how I train my mind on things, that it manifests itself in reality. And I'm not talking just kind of the casual kind of law of attraction things. I just, whatever you fix your mind on, that becomes your reality. And it doesn't happen though without action, consistent action, and moving forward. And when you come with obstacles, that's all they are. You just navigate around them, and those obstacles are learning experiences. So I love how you said that. We are surrounded by beauty. We're surrounded by beauty all around us. You just need to see it, and it's there.
Exactly. And it's a mindset more than anything, like I encounter negative, I will look for positive. And, I'm not naive about it, but at the same time, even in adversity, there must be positives. How can we get to the goal or the objectives that we want to go to? And that then, starting as you already said, when I wake up first thing in the morning, then what is on my mind is positive. It's going to be a positive day, and I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be ups and downs, all the other things around it. Those are all part of it. It's a challenge. That's good. So that brings me to you in terms of an author. When did this all kind of start? Have you always been interested as a writer, and so how did that all come about?
Well, I've always been a big reader, and I kind of tinkered with journaling and things like that in high school. Even in the Marine Corps, I kind of journaled some stuff. But the idea of being an author just seemed so far away from me at that time. And I didn't. My very first book was a children's illustrated book that was born from me just reading to my daughters at night. There was this it was one thing that I was the storyteller, and so the girls loved it when I would jump in bed and I'd read a stack of children's illustrated books. We plow through those and like more, 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 and so I'd tell them stories. And one story was about this dog named Kiki, and it's a wonderful story. And then and all the adventures Kiki and the girls would go on. And then after one night of reading to the girls, I came in and my wife was watching TV, and I said, "Hey, how would you feel if I did a children's book, kind of based it around this character Kiki the dog?" And she thought it was a really cool idea. So that I did. By the way, I had no idea what I was doing, none. But that's never stopped me. And it's like, okay, I got this idea. It seems interesting. I do a little bit of due diligence, and then I just plow ahead with it. I figure I'll learn kind of along the way. And so and what I tend to do is I tend to learn from looking at other people. So I've done this all throughout life. I'm like, so who else could I model? Who's done this before? How did they do that? And so I researched these authors. I researched those kinds of things. Like, okay, and I get inspiration when I research other people and the things that they've done. And you end up finding out, wow, they didn't have an education, or oh, they didn't do this, or so therefore I can do it too. So the long and short of it is that I created this children's book. I actually did it, and that what the beauty of that was, here I was sitting here. I started with an idea, and then next thing I'm holding it in my hand. Like this is creation right here.
Yeah.
It's an idea, and now it's manifested into reality by leveraging my labor, by putting in consistent effort and discipline, because there were times I didn't want to do it. Anyway, that then sparked a creative in me. I was 40. How old was I? 40. I was 41 years old when I first started writing my first novel. So by the way, that's something for people out there that think I'm too old to do anything. That's not true. That's ageism is something you put on yourself. Like that's a limiting belief system of the individual. I'm not saying there aren't people in the world that might try to be ageist to you, but I just ignore those. That's just sound. I just ignore people that hit me with negativity, and I see what I want to see. But I started writing so I was reading a lot, and I was reading a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction. I've always been fascinated by that genre, the science fiction behind it, or just the kind of concept of the human condition during it all. And I was reading a lot, but I wasn't finding the story that I wanted. So then the idea after the children's books, like, well, why don't I just write it? Why don't I write the book that I want to read?
Exactly.
And I just set out to do it. Again, I researched other authors, kind of newbie authors, that how did they get their start? And the one that really inspired me was Stephanie Meyer. She's the author of the Twilight series with those vampires that glisten and all those things. Ends up becoming a blockbuster and a huge franchise for her. But I read about how she wrote her first novel, and I just modeled that. And so I would, after the girls were in bed, after I was, I would go downstairs and I would dedicate so many hours a night to writing so many words. And I treated it like a job. I didn't treat it like a hobby. I treated it like a job. And then, because then if it's a job, then I have to show up for my job. Yeah. This is what I have to do. So believe me, this again, where the discipline comes in. You get all the motivation in the world, but then there were many nights I didn't want to sit down. I was tired. I just didn't want to do it. But it's like, no, it's my job. I got to sit down. I got to do this. And it just did really, really well. And then, so I finished. I was writing it. I got an agent. I fired the agent. And then I self-published the book. And then about 10 days after self-publishing, it took off. The first novel called The End. And it was going really, really well. Like surprisingly well. Because I did not, when I say this, I did not know what I was doing as far as book marketing. This is 2013, so social media was in its infancy, really. And so I hadn't done any marketing. It just had kind of taken this organic, kind of went viral organically. But I saw this door of opportunity. And I was like, okay, it's selling really well. But I knew I needed to quit my job in order to put a sequel out right away. I couldn't wait 18 months for a sequel. I had to do a sequel right away. I just understood that just in my heart, like I can't wait that long. There's this huge door of opportunity open. And so I looked, but I know my wife, and I created this spreadsheet. I looked at all the numbers I'd made in the first month of selling that book. And I printed it out and had it next to what I had made the year before. And I presented it to her. I said, I want to quit my job. She goes, she's laughing at me. I said, this is what I made last year, and this is what I made just past month. I made more money in 1 month than I made the year before. And she goes, okay. So I quit my job and went to work earnestly to writing the sequel, got it done. And then all kinds of things were happening. Calls from publishers were coming in because the sales are just they're going really, really well. And finally, Penguin Random House gave me a call and said, we love the book, and signed me to a big 4-book deal. And then everything just was gone from there.
When was that? What year was that, Jeff?
2013.
So that was really before we had Facebook, before we had all the other things in terms of social media, contacting. It was still the very traditional way of doing books. You had to find, okay, you don't know what you're really doing, so you have to find. You write the book, and then you're trying to find somebody that will say, okay, I'll try to work with it. So let's see what happens, blah, blah, blah. You didn't do that. You took the initiative yourself and pushed it forward.
Yeah, I had an agent. She's wonderful. She has a wonderful outfit here in San Diego locally. And she wanted to represent the book. And we ended up having some creative disagreements, to the point that I was like, I'm going to have to let her go. And by the way, you know how hard it is to get an agent.
Yeah.
It's like incredibly difficult to get a literary agent. And here I'd landed one. And then I'd let her go. And so I was operating, I know this sounds, I was operating a lot of instinct.
Yeah.
She wanted to go in a direction creatively that I'd already kind of just naturally created what they call beta readers or ARC readers, which now everyone talks about. Oh, you need to have a team of our advanced readers and beta readers. And I did that naturally. I found a group of people that were outside of my friend group that I wanted them to read the book. They were kind of part of the demographic that I was targeting. But just instinctually, I was like, listen, I should find a group of people to see if they like, because I looked at the book too as like a product. I know that might sound counterintuitive to creative types. Right. I was like, I'm creating, but I'm running a business. I've got a product. It's called a book. Yeah. And so I found my target audience, the avatar is what they call it now. And I found those people as a small group of people, and I sent the book to them. And I got some great results for them, some really good critiques. But overall, they really enjoyed it. So when I approached Margaret with that, she goes, well, I know, blah, 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 blah. And she thought in order to sell it to one of the big publishers, I needed to make some of these big structural changes in the book. And I was like, listen, I get these beta readers that are in my target demographic that love it. I said, I'm not going to change it. And so that's where we came to this thing. And so we just parted ways. And I made this big bet. And I bet, I was like all in at the poker table. I was like, I'm going to self-publish it. I'm all in. And then it just took off after 10 days. It just went like that. It would stop.
Now, for the people that are watching us, and those in particular that are aspiring to do books, what is an avatar? What does it mean to those people that are watching us? I know what it is, but just to explain, what is an avatar?
Yeah, the avatar is the person you're selling whatever to. It could be anything. You create a widget, but you're writing a book. You're not everyone that's in the world is going to read your book. Right. There's a target audience. That's the avatar. So you look at them. You look at who is that person. Right. You break it down. It could be done by gender, by political beliefs. You can kind of refine what the avatar is. Right. And so that's who you're targeting. By the way, I don't suggest ever writing the book for the avatar. I suggest you write the book, and then there's an audience for that book.
Exactly.
Does it make sense? Because sometimes people will write a book for a group. Well, I think the creativity comes first. Yeah. That's how you can get into a flow state when you're creating. And then you switch gears into this kind of business mindset. Okay, now I've got this beautiful book, this beautiful product, whatever it is. Now, what is the natural audience for this? What is the avatar that was going to read this book? Who is that person? And then that's who you market it to.
Yeah.
So again, you're not starting with you don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
You creatively write the book that you want to read. So you flow in all this creativity, create this wonderful book, and then then you know who's the audience for. So that's the avatar. The avatar is the reader that is going to be picking up that book.
Yeah, and so we have similarities in the sense that I'm a storyteller. That's who I am.
Uh-huh.
I do that with all the things virtually that I do. If I make, I do that in my books. If I make presentations, I do the same actually when I'm podcasting. In a way, is that interacting like we do, Jeff. So for me, the first book that I did is I had an interesting life, and a lot of people said to me, "Hey, John, you should write a book about it." And saying, "Well, writing books is not easy." So so then I started writing, and then I stopped. Then I started writing, stopped, and so then I knew, and this comes to what you were saying when you started writing when you were 41, and to a lot of people said, "Well, you're too old," or "I'm too old, I cannot do that at that age." So I'm part of your group in terms of saying you're never too old. So then I started writing my first book, and so it took me. The first one was this one, Against All Odds, and it's not about how successful John is, rather to the contrary. It's all the ups and downs along the way, and it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2.5 years to write it. And saying, as you already said, writing books is not easy because it becomes a question of, is it hardcover? What should be the front? What should be the fonts here? Well, how many pages? How many? And all of those things, right? So, and I really enjoyed it, and so, and then from there on in, one to the next one, and the next one, and the one that I did, the fourth one actually, or the third one actually, no, the fourth one that I did is all about things that I believe in, the same as you were saying about your daughters gave you the inspiration for the children book initially because you're a storyteller. So you did that in your book and obviously attracted others in the avatar, if you wish, of that grouping, that a lot of parents and other ones that created the market. The market was already there. So the other thing that I found important is that, I'm into health and fitness. So at any age, and so I wrote a book about that, living young, dying old, and again, that's a picture of me. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, and
Love it.
so and so in 2018 I qualified for the provincials first, and then for the nationals, and then for the Arnolds, and then COVID came obviously, and now again I'm training for the Arnolds in 2026. And so that's kind of what I look like today. And but it brings me to the gym, and I do the same as you indicated. I create a discipline because before, somewhat, I was like everybody else for a long time. Is that at the end of the year we make commitments? I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and then I'm going to buy a membership to the gym, and then 2 weeks later we can find 100 reasons why we're too busy to go to the gym. And until the next year. But got a shock that a case of diverticulitis that ruptured my colon and nearly killed me, actually. They took a section of the colon out, and then the doc said to me the following morning, you came that close. And then I know I had to be more serious. My wife is a vegetarian, and I didn't listen as well. Doesn't mean I was abusive in the things that I ate necessarily, but not as good as I could be. And so, but then I changed that. I started to become very conscientious in 2008 when I got the operation, nearly killed me in 2009. I started working in 2008 on diet, and then I started to bring in a trainer, because if there is a trainer I'm working with, I have a commitment. and if I have a commitment,
Mhm.
no matter what happens, I will follow the. And so that's what I've been doing now for nearly 16 years. And so I go to the gym, and then after going to the gym, for about 6 years with the trainer, somebody came up to us. I already was in my mid 70s, and they said, "Hey, John, have you ever thought competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah." I thought, why not? So, and I started
Love
training
it.
and competing, at my mid 70s, and that comes to you're never too old,
Of
so,
course not. Yeah.
and it's a can do attitude, right? So, and so that's how I am today, and at nearly 85, and so now I'm working at the same. My next book coming out, my fifth one, is communication skills. You're a very good communicator. And that is a critical part of being successful, not only in writing, but also in interacting and in all the things that you do. Communication skills, in my opinion, are critical and have been to me in all the things that I did, because I grew up speaking dialect in Holland, and I loved speaking dialect. And then obviously my schooling was not much in High Dutch because I didn't spend much time there. And then when I went into the Air Force, I had to speak High Dutch, and I barely got that under control. Then I go to Canada, and I couldn't speak English. I had to learn to speak English and communicate, and then become from there on in interacting. Then obviously an author and a speaker and all the other things. So I wrote a book about that. Success in this one, $1 billion, all about communication skills. That's the foundation of how they became successful. And I describe the importance of communication skills in your life and all the things that you do. And all the things that you do, and not only in writing, reading, but also in writing and communication in a general sense, and partnerships and all of those things. And so I found that was important. So that's why I wrote that one. It's coming out in July.
Well, you touched on two things: the storyteller concept, and isn't it interesting? Oh, by the way, I do want to take one step back. What an incredible, like, your life's been an incredible journey. Look at that, and again, a testament to just that can-do attitude and not having limiting self-beliefs. Uh, starting in being a bodybuilder, starting in your mid 70s, that's incredible. And this is why I model. This is why I seek out when I have something I'm thinking about. I seek out people for inspiration. And the inspiration gets you only so far. But what it shows me is like, wait a minute, John's done this. If he's done it, I can do it too. Because I look at like, not to say people aren't special, but we're just human beings. And I look at them like, okay, so he's done that, or that person's done this. I can do that too. Like, and how do they do it? And that's where I get down to the modeling concept. Like, okay, they've done this, or this is what they do. This is, I kind of look at their the habits you create through discipline. Like, oh, so he does this, he did this, or she did this, she did that. Okay, I'll just do that until I build my own habits, which I then will probably tweak or refine to myself and what I have doing. But it is, I tell people all the time, they think, sometimes I think people find me, I'm like too optimistic. I'm always like, I think sometimes people don't tell me like what's going on in their life, because I'm always like, because I something bad might happen to them. And I'm not talking awful, not like
I
a
know.
tragedy. Something
Yeah.
might happen. I go, good. Like, what do you mean good? I'm like, well, now you know that doesn't work, or now you have an opportunity to learn from this. They sometimes, I know that drives people crazy, but I've trained my mind to do that. And I've got my wife's all on board with this kind of thinking as well. Like, something happens and it's not the most, you know, the greatest thing. And I'll go, good, good. Okay, good. And then my mind is already seeking the positive from the circumstance. And I was on Thomas Craig's podcast, and I was talking about the closed door um, analogy. And he said he hadn't heard about it, but I was talking about and only because it's just how it affected me years ago, and how I shifted and how I thought. So we all have the concept of the closed, when the door closes on us, right? Opportunity's gone, relationship ends, whatever's going on. Something good hasn't happened. So now you've got this closed door. And what most people do is they will stand right up next to that closed door where their noses are touching it and they're staring at it. And they're all consumed by the closed door. They're so close to it that they can't see around them. And I say, step away from the closed door. Exactly. Put it in the distance. Step away from it. And that's why I mentioned earlier, when you step away from that closed door, you now have peripheral vision. You have an awareness, and you can see. And then suddenly you'll see, oh, there's an open door down there. Oh, there's one over there. Yeah. And then you can turn away from that closed door. It doesn't mean you don't know it exists. Of course, you have an awareness that this thing happened, but it's happened now. It's done. Yeah. So what do you do next? And I tell them, I've really done a lot over the years of really making sure that my girls understand it. I tell them it's okay to fail.
Exactly.
Right? There's two things. There's failing, which is present tense, and then there's failure, which is past. Exactly. I said you are the one who gets to choose if something is a failure. Exactly. We all fail. Yeah. We all will fail. Failing is just something not working out. Yeah. Or you did something wrong. But that's okay if you reframe it as a learning opportunity and an experience that you can take with that's positive. You then never fail. You're never a failure. Exactly. You take that you dig through it and you find those little nuggets and you take that with you and you go on to the next thing. And so I tell them, I said, who are you when something goes wrong? I say, because they're in school now, like if they fail a test, I'm like, okay, good. Now, what did you learn from that? Oh, so I have them dissect it in a way. I'm like, okay, so did you, and they'll tell me, well, I didn't really study as much as I should have. Okay, it's good. You learned. Now, what are you going to do going forward? Right. I said, oh, and I need to do this. Okay, it's fine. We'll have the tutor make sure that she educates you on that. And so they had the event, the failing, then they kind of dissect it, and then they learn where they're learning, and then they tweak it, and then they go on, and then they pass the next time they take it. Exactly. And so it's and I said those are kind of like that first principles, breaking down something that you can do in anything in life. Exactly. Anything
applies to
anything. I said,
right.
And you can do it with anything. Something happens. Okay, so what happened? What is my ownership in this circumstance? Why am I here? Why did this happen? Okay. And I do it almost like an observer in some ways, like almost separate my consciousness from myself and observe it. And I just kind of look at it. But there was that. I know I kind of went down a rabbit hole on that. But you mentioned the storyteller. And aren't we all as human beings storytellers? Like we wake up from a dream state, which is storytelling. We then will wake up and go into this world each morning, and we're talking with people and we're sharing stories. You and I are storytelling right now with each other. Yeah. People will then watch this later, and then they're hearing. So we're either telling stories or consuming stories. Exactly. The whole time we're existing. That's what human beings do. We're storytellers. It's a way we convey information. But when you get down to the professional storyteller, I tell that when I coach authors, I said the most important thing that you are is the storyteller. Be the storyteller.
I agree.
All the other stuff comes later. The editors, the proofers, all that. The first and most important thing when you're sitting down and you're writing, don't worry about what the cover. Don't worry about publishing your agents. Don't worry about editing. Don't just put that over here because you can't do anything with that unless you have a book. That's your rough draft. So, but be the storyteller. Exactly. Tell the story. Exactly. Put it onto the page. Put it all onto the page. So the storyteller is very, very important.
Exactly. Jeff, can you believe that this has been an hour?
Oh, it has.
So before we go, and we're going to have to do more, I'm going to tell Scott to stay in touch with you and see because we have so much more to talk about. So what can you share with our viewers? How do they find out about your books and a website that you have, or how do they contact you and all the things that you do?
Well, the best way to contact me is go to my website at gmichaelhoff.com. There's a contact page there. Just send me an email. and I do reply to all my emails. So over time, I will answer you. And if you have any advice on writing, I will answer, because I believe in sharing that information with people. I want people to become successful. There is no competition in the creative. I don't believe in competition. We should all be out there collaborating and helping one another. Even though I know I mentioned books are a product, they're not. They're a consumable. And so you should try to network and collab with as many writers and people creatively as you possibly can, and help each other. And so I always help authors all the time. I give advice all the time. I want people to be successful. As far as all my books can be found clearly at all of them at Amazon, some in actual bookstores as well. And the latest projects I've been working on, I've been into the video creation. Just trying to. I've already got kind of the books, and I've got the consulting, and I got the publishing companies. But I'm really into working with and creating some faceless YouTube channels and some other great content for YouTube. Trying to create another different income stream that's not tied to retail. But that's a whole nother thing we can get into another time.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you copies. This is a little bit of a dangerous thing that I'm going to tell you here. I'm going to send you copies of all my books, including this one that will come out in 2 weeks from now. I'm going to send you the other 4 that I have first. And that does not mean that I'm suggesting that you send me 40 of yours. So send me 1 or 2 of your favorite books that you think you should
Absolutely.
send, and sign them for me. So I'm going to sign all of those, and then we'll send those out. And then when this one comes out, I'm going to send you that too. And then you're so much of an inspiration to me and all the things that you do. I want to stay in touch with you. And so the first thing, I'm going to send you the books. And then I'm going to say to Scott, stay in touch with you, get another podcast. Are you doing any podcasting on your own or?
I don't know. There's only so much bandwidth that I have.
But
I thought about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I've really thought about it. I think it'd be fun to have just kind of have these kind of long form conversations with people. I think I love meeting new people. I love hearing their stories, how they've been able to navigate through life and have the things that they have, the richness that they have in life. So I mean, I've always been fascinated by it, and I've always had a desire to do it. It's just kind of a little bit down on the list of things.
Yeah. So but I'd like to have you back on another podcast with us. I'm going to send you the books first, and then in a couple of months from now or so, then let's have another podcast.
I'd love that. I would love to sit down with you again. Absolutely. Because I have questions for you too, because I think your life is you think mine's an inspiration, yours is inspiration. Before we had this conversation, I've looked at all that you've done. It's an incredible journey, and I know one that you're proud of, but one that is, I guarantee you, what you've done has changed people's lives because you've inspired them to take action and to move. The book you're talking about, Living Young and Dying Old, is something I've really, at 55, is really important for me too. I quit drinking, all these other things. Again, these are a whole another conversation we can have. I believe in longevity as well, and I want to do all those things that you're doing to stay here as long as possible.
And quality of life is the critical part.
Yes.
At any age. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm going to send you the books and then sign them and send them out. I'm excited already, looking forward to the next couple of months. We do another podcast. But in the meantime, I appreciate you being on my podcast with respect. And then for all the people watching us from around the world, find Jeff's books. They are on all the major medias. He has it all on his website to find them. And then if you like what I'm doing in my podcast, subscribe to my podcast. That gives me inspiration. Share it with others. Comment on it. Like it if you like it. And then if you have comments, share it with us. And then watch Jeff's books and buy them or read them and get, it's amazing. Jeff, it was a privilege, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, John. Take care.